If you were forced to choose between your own safety and protecting those who depend on you, how far would you go? Prepare yourself for a heart-wrenching story of sacrifice, courage, and the extraordinary lengths a small creature will go to protect what matters most. A story that will remind you of the deepest bonds that exist in this world. In the quiet corner of Riverside Park in Manhattan, where towering oak trees provided dappled shade, and the distant hum of city traffic felt miles away rather than blocks, a small tabby kitten had claimed a weathered wooden bench as her territory. Her fur, once perhaps a vibrant orange with delicate stripes, was now matted and dulled by days spent outdoors, her tiny frame noticeably thin beneath the dirt-streaked coat. The kitten's emerald eyes, however, remained alert and fierce despite her fragile appearance, scanning the area with an intensity that seemed out of place in such a young animal. Park visitors who attempted to sit on the bench were met with a hissing, arched-back display that belied her small size, an unmistakable warning that sent most people seeking rest elsewhere, unwilling to disturb the territorial little creature. Park maintenance workers had noticed the kitten 3 days ago, her sudden appearance a mystery, perhaps abandoned by an owner who could no longer care for her, or a stray who had wandered in from the surrounding neighborhoods. Whatever her origins, she had established an unwavering routine, leaving the bench only for brief moments before hurrying back, as if tied to the spot by an invisible tether. Eleanor Rodriguez, one of the park's groundskeepers, had been the first to notice something unusual about the kitten's behavior. It wasn't just defensiveness over territory, as she had initially assumed. The tiny feline would occasionally disappear beneath the bench, staying there for extended periods before re-emerging, more protective and aggressive than before, as if something precious was hidden in that dark space beneath the weathered wooden slats. She must be guarding something, Elena had mentioned to her supervisor, who had simply shrugged and suggested calling animal control if the kitten became a nuisance to park visitors. But Elena, a lifelong animal lover with 3 rescue cats of her own, felt reluctant to involve authorities who might not understand the complexity of the situation or take the time to investigate what the kitten was so desperately protecting. Instead, Eleanor had begun leaving small bowls of water and cat food nearby, placing them at a respectful distance that allowed the kitten to eat without feeling threatened. She observed how the kitten would carefully eat just enough to sustain herself, then carry mouthfuls of food back beneath the bench, a behavior that confirmed Elena's suspicions that the kitten wasn't alone. The spring weather had been unseasonably cold in New York that week, with overnight temperatures dipping dangerously low for any creature living outdoors. Last night's unexpected rainstorm had left the park grounds soggy and had Elena particularly worried about the bench's small inhabitant, who must have endured the downpour without shelter, steadfastly refusing to abandon her post. As Elena made her usual morning rounds through the park, she noticed the kitten looked particularly bedraggled, her fur clumped into wet spikes, eyes heavy with exhaustion, yet still maintaining that fierce vigilance that had characterized her presence since her arrival. The sight strengthened Elena's resolve. Today she would find a way to help, to discover what the kitten was hiding, and to ensure their safety. The opportunity came in the form of Lily Chen, a 12-year-old girl who frequently visited the park with her sketchbook, finding inspiration in the natural beauty that persisted despite the urban surroundings. Lily had been one of the few people who had noticed the kitten's presence without attempting to approach or disturb her, instead observing from a distance with the quiet patience that made her such a talented artist. When Elena approached Lily that morning, explaining her concerns about the kitten and what might be hidden beneath the bench, the girl's eyes had lit up with determined compassion. "I could try to see," she offered without hesitation. "Animals sometimes feel less threatened by children. My mom says it's because we're smaller, so we seem less dangerous." Eleanor had been skeptical at first. The kitten had shown aggression toward everyone who approached, but Lily's confidence was compelling. Together they formulated a plan. Lily would approach slowly with a small offering of food, not heading directly for the bench, but sitting nearby on the ground, making herself smaller and less threatening, demonstrating through patience that she posed no danger. The morning sun had fully risen by the time they put their plan into action, casting long shadows across the dewy grass as Lily made her careful approach. The kitten's posture immediately stiffened, emerald eyes narrowing as she tracked the girl's movement, a low warning growl emanating from her tiny body that seemed entirely too fierce for her small size. But Lily, showing wisdom beyond her years, didn't retreat at the warning signs. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the damp ground several feet from the bench, placed the small handful of cat food Eleanor had given her on the grass before her, and then opened her sketchbook, seemingly ignoring the kitten while actually watching from her peripheral vision. What followed was a delicate dance of trust-building that stretched across hours, with Lily remaining motionless, except to occasionally turn a page in her sketchbook or add a careful line to her drawing. The kitten watched warily, her rigid posture gradually relaxing as the minutes ticked by, and no threat materialized from the quiet girl who seemed interested only in her art and not in forcing an unwanted interaction. By midday, a tentative peace had been established between Lily and the kitten. The small tabby had eventually approached to investigate the offered food, eating cautiously while keeping her eyes fixed on the girl who continued to sketch, seemingly absorbed in her art, while actually documenting the kitten's every movement with careful strokes of her pencil. After finishing the food, the kitten had retreated to the bench rather than disappearing beneath it, which Elena, watching from a discreet distance, considered significant progress. The groundskeeper had modified her rounds to pass by regularly, checking on Lily and bringing fresh water for both the girl and the kitten as the spring sun climbed higher in the sky. "She has beautiful markings," Lily whispered to Elena during one such visit, showing her the detailed sketch she had created. The tabby's distinctive M-shaped forehead pattern, the subtle rings around her tail, and the alert posture that conveyed both vulnerability and fierce determination. "I think she's starting to trust me a little, but she still won't let me near the bench." Elena nodded, unsurprised by the kitten's continued wariness. "Wild animals and strays learn to be cautious," she explained quietly. "Their survival depends on it. But you're doing wonderfully, Lily. She's more relaxed than I've seen her since she appeared. I think if anyone can discover what she's protecting, it's you." Encouraged, Lily continued her patient vigil, occasionally humming softly as she worked on her sketches, the gentle melody seeming to further soothe the kitten who had begun to blink slowly at her, a sign of feline comfort that Lily recognized from her cousin's cat. Small victories, but meaningful ones in the delicate process of building trust with a frightened animal. As the afternoon progressed, more park visitors passed by, some pausing to observe the unusual scene of the young girl sitting cross-legged on the ground near a bench guarded by a tiny kitten. Most continued on their way after a curious glance, but others lingered, their presence causing the kitten to grow increasingly agitated, her hard-won relaxation evaporating as she positioned herself protectively in front of the bench. "Maybe you should come back tomorrow," Elena suggested when she noticed Lily's dismayed expression at the kitten's renewed defensiveness. "It's getting crowded, and she seems overwhelmed. You've made incredible progress already. Sometimes these things take time." But Lily shook her head, a gentle determination in her eyes that matched the kitten's own. "I promised I'd help her," Lily insisted quietly, "and I think something's wrong. She keeps looking under the bench and making these little sounds. I think whatever she's protecting might be in trouble." The concern in the girl's voice resonated with Elena, who had noticed the kitten's increasing distress. More than simple territorial behavior, it seemed almost like worry. Just then, a sudden commotion erupted nearby. A large, unleashed dog had bounded into the park area, its owner calling ineffectively after it as it rushed toward the playground where children were shrieking in a mixture of delight and alarm. The disturbance sent the kitten into a panic, her back arching dramatically as she hissed at the barking dog even from a distance. In that moment of chaos, with attention diverted to the dog situation, Lily made a decision. Moving slowly but purposefully, she approached the bench, speaking in soothing tones to the kitten who was too distracted by the perceived threat to notice the girl's advance until she was just feet away. "It's okay," Lily murmured. "I just want to help." The kitten whirled to face her, startled by the unexpected proximity, and for a tense moment Lily feared she had ruined all progress as the small tabby arched her back and hissed defensively. But instead of attacking or fleeing, the kitten did something unexpected. She darted beneath the bench as if to check on what lay hidden there, then re-emerged with an urgent, plaintive meow that seemed almost like a plea. Something in that sound stirred Lily's heart, an unmistakable call for help that transcended the barrier between species. With careful movements, she knelt beside the bench and peered into the shadows beneath, her eyes taking a moment to adjust to the darkness. What she saw made her breath catch, a small cardboard box pushed against the concrete base of the bench, and within it, tiny forms barely visible in the dim light. "Eleanor!" Lily called softly, urgently, not wanting to startle the kitten who was now watching her with an intensity that seemed to evaluate her worthiness to share this precious secret. "Please come here, I found them." The groundskeeper approached cautiously, crouching beside Lily to peer beneath the bench, her experienced eyes widening at the sight. In the makeshift nest of what appeared to be discarded fast food napkins and bits of paper, 3 newborn kittens lay huddled together, their eyes still sealed shut, their tiny bodies barely larger than mice. They were so young that their ears remained folded against their heads, their miniature paws flexing unconsciously in the instinctive kneading motion of nursing kittens. "That's why she wouldn't leave," Elena whispered, understanding dawning in her voice. "She's their mother, and they can't be more than a few days old." The revelation transformed everything they had observed. The kitten wasn't simply a territorial stray, but a young mother protecting her vulnerable offspring against impossible odds, alone in an urban park through cold nights and rainstorms, refusing to abandon them even when her own survival was at risk. Segment 3. Ponto de Virada. As Elena and Lily absorbed the significance of their discovery, the mother kitten slipped past them to check on her babies, gently nosing each tiny form and licking their heads with maternal concern. Her previous aggression had transformed into wary acceptance of their presence, as if recognizing that these humans might represent her kitten's best chance at survival rather than a threat to be driven away. "They're so small," Lily whispered, tears welling in her eyes as she watched the mother's careful ministrations. "And it was so cold last night during the storm. How did she keep them warm?" Eleanor's expression was somber as she assessed the situation with the practiced eye of someone who had rescued many animals over the years. "She used her own body," Elena explained quietly. "That's why she's so thin. She's giving everything she has to keep them alive, even when she barely has enough to sustain herself." The groundskeeper's voice caught slightly as she added, "And that's probably why she's been carrying the food back instead of eating it all herself. She's nursing, so she needs the nutrition, but she's been trying to save some for when they're old enough to eat solid food." As if confirming this assessment, the mother kitten returned to the small pile of kibble that remained from Lily's offering, picked up a piece in her mouth, and carried it beneath the bench, dropping it near the box before returning for another piece. The futile gesture, the kitten's far too young to eat such food, spoke volumes about her inexperienced but fierce determination to provide for her family. "We have to help them," Lily declared, the hesitant approach of the morning replaced by absolute certainty. "They won't survive out here, especially if it rains again." Elena nodded in agreement, already pulling out her phone to make calls, but her expression remained troubled as she considered the challenges ahead. "The shelter is overcrowded already," she admitted, after a brief, frustrated call. "Kitten season has hit hard this year, and they're at capacity. They suggested we bring them to the city shelter, but..." She didn't finish the sentence, but Lily understood. City shelters often couldn't devote resources to newborns who required around-the-clock care, and the likelihood of euthanasia was high for such vulnerable animals. The mother kitten, perhaps sensing their dilemma, approached Lily with careful steps, no longer hissing or arching her back defensively. Instead, she pressed her small head against the girl's hand, in a gesture that seemed almost like supplication, her emerald eyes meeting Lily's with an intelligence that transcended words. A mother asking another being to help protect what she alone could not. That simple touch, that moment of connection was the tipping point. "I'll take them," Lily announced, her young voice steady with resolve that belied her years. "My mom works from home, and she knows about kittens. We fostered a pregnant cat last year, and Mom helped deliver the babies. She'll know what to do." Eleanor looked uncertain. "That's a big responsibility, Lily. Newborns need feeding every 2 hours around the clock, and the mother is feral. She might not adjust well to being indoors. It's not a simple situation." Her concern was valid, but Lily's determination didn't waver as she pulled out her own phone and pressed the speed dial for her mother. The conversation was brief but intense, with Lily explaining the situation in rushed, passionate terms, while Elena watched the mother kitten return to her babies, curling around them protectively in the cardboard box. When Lily finally ended the call, her face was bright with relief and purpose. "Mom says yes, she's coming with the car and our carrier. She'll be here in 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes were spent in careful preparation. Elena providing a small towel from her maintenance cart to line the carrier, Lily sitting beside the bench, speaking softly to the mother kitten about the warm, safe place where she and her babies would soon be going. The kitten listened with wary attention, occasionally blinking slowly at Lily in what seemed like cautious trust. When Minji Chen arrived, hurrying along the park path with a cat carrier in hand, the real challenge began. Despite the tentative trust established, moving newborn kittens and their protective mother was a delicate operation fraught with risk. One wrong move could shatter the fragile connection they had built, potentially causing the mother to reject her kittens or become too stressed to care for them properly. With slow, careful movements, Elena guided Lily through the process, showing her how to gently lift the entire cardboard box rather than handling the newborns individually, minimizing their scent transfer and disturbance. The mother kitten watched anxiously, making small distress sounds but not attacking, a testament to how far they had come in establishing trust since morning. "The carrier door needs to stay open where she can see her babies," Minji advised, her calm demeanor a steadying influence as they worked. "We want her to go in voluntarily if possible." They placed the cardboard box with the kittens at the back of the carrier, then stepped away, giving the mother space to make her choice without feeling cornered. For several tense minutes, the tabby paced in front of the carrier, her tail lashing with agitation as she peered inside at her babies, then looked back toward the bench that had been their only home. The moment hung in balance, her feral instincts warring with maternal devotion, trust battling against the ingrained wariness that had kept her alive on the streets. Then, with a decisive movement that brought tears to Lily's eyes, the mother kitten stepped into the carrier, immediately curling around her babies with a rumbling purr that vibrated through her thin frame. Minji carefully secured the carrier door, and just like that, the little family's life in the park was ended, their future rerouted towards something safer but unknown. Segment 4. Superação e Resolução. The first night in the Chen household was challenging for everyone involved. The mother kitten, whom Lily had named Ember for her dull orange coat that promised to brighten with proper care, had retreated to the back of the large dog crate they had prepared in Lily's bedroom, hissing whenever anyone approached too quickly and refusing the comfortable bed they had provided in favor of the familiar cardboard box. "Give her time," Minji advised her disappointed daughter, who had hoped for a more immediate transformation now that Ember and her babies were safe. "Remember, everything is strange to her. The sounds, the smells, even the feeling of carpet under her paws. Her entire world has changed in a matter of hours, and all she knows is that she must protect her kittens." That protection extended to feeding, as they discovered when they tried to supplement the kitten's diet with kitten formula. Ember had growled and positioned herself between the tiny syringe of formula and her babies, clearly interpreting their attempts at help as a threat to her maternal role, despite her own depleted condition. "We need to earn her trust," Minji explained, years of fostering experience evident in her patient approach. "Right now we'll focus on making sure she has plenty of high-quality food and water, and a quiet space to nurse. The kittens are getting milk from her, and they don't seem dehydrated, which is the main concern. We'll try supplementing again tomorrow when she's had time to settle." The breakthrough came at 3 in the morning, when Lily, unable to sleep for worrying about their new charges, crept into her room to check on them. She found Ember standing at the front of the crate, meowing softly as if calling for help, her usual wariness temporarily overtaken by maternal concern for one of her kittens who seemed to be struggling, its tiny mouth unable to latch properly. Without thinking, Lily opened the crate door and reached in to help, expecting Ember to hiss or swipe at her hand. Instead, the exhausted mother cat stood aside, allowing the girl to gently reposition the weakest kitten at a better nursing angle, watching with anxious eyes until the tiny creature began to suckle successfully, its minuscule paws kneading in satisfaction against Ember's side. That moment marked a turning point in their relationship. Ember had chosen trust over fear, recognizing in Lily an ally rather than a threat. By morning, the transformation was evident, as Ember allowed Minji to examine each kitten carefully, weighing them on a small kitchen scale to establish baseline measurements that would help track their development and health. "This little one," Minji noted, gently handling the smallest kitten who had struggled during the night, "will need extra attention. She's significantly underweight compared to her siblings." She demonstrated for Lily how to supplement with tiny amounts of formula after the kitten had nursed, using a syringe to deliver additional nutrition, while Ember watched attentively, no longer protesting their intervention. As days passed, the Chen apartment became a carefully orchestrated neonatal kitten nursery. Lily had set up a rotation chart on her wall, tracking feeding times, weights, and developmental milestones with the dedication of a much older caretaker. Minji had rearranged her work schedule to accommodate middle-of-the-night feedings for the smallest kitten, whom Lily had named Spark. Ember, too, was changing, her once dull coat beginning to shine with proper nutrition, her initially skeletal frame filling out as she devoured the high-calorie kitten food they provided. Most remarkably, her behavior had softened from wary aggression to cautious acceptance, and eventually to something approaching domesticity as she allowed gentle pets while nursing and even began to purr when Lily entered the room. The kitten's 2-week milestone brought the magical moment of their eyes opening. First the largest, a silver tabby Lily had named Ash, then the middle kitten, a calico she called Flicker, and finally, 2 days later than her siblings, tiny Spark revealed eyes as emerald green as her mother's. Lily had cried at the sight, overwhelmed by the privilege of witnessing such a fundamental transition from helpless newborns to increasingly aware beings. Eleanor visited regularly, bringing updates from the park and small gifts for the growing family. A catnip mouse for Ember, specially formulated wet food that the shelter used for nursing mothers, and once, a photograph of the bench where they had been found, now adorned with a small laminated sign explaining that the bench kitten and her babies were safe and thriving in a foster home. "People were worried when they disappeared," Elena explained, showing Lily how park visitors had left small offerings, cat toys, cans of food, even handwritten notes, beside the bench after the family's rescue. Your story spread through the neighborhood. Everyone who had seen Ember guarding that bench wanted to know what happened to her and her kittens. The public interest gave Minji an idea. With Lily's enthusiastic assistance, they created a social media account documenting the kitten's progress. Daily photos showing their growth, their eyes opening, their first wobbly steps. They shared Ember's transformation from frightened feral to attentive house cat, along with educational information about the importance of spay-neuter programs and the challenges of kitten season. The bench kittens, as they became known online, quickly gathered a following of animal lovers captivated by their story. Local news picked up the heartwarming tale of the brave mother cat and the persistent young girl who had earned her trust, featuring photos of Lily and Ember that prompted an outpouring of donations to the neighborhood animal shelter that had provided support and veterinary care. By the 6-week mark, the kittens had transformed from helpless newborns into playful, active bundles of energy that tumbled around their increasingly large enclosure, pouncing on toys and each other with equal enthusiasm. Even Spark, once so fragile, had caught up to her siblings in size and development. Her initial struggles evident only in the extra attention Ember still lavished on her smallest offspring. With the kittens eating solid food and becoming more independent, Minji and Lily faced the bittersweet reality they had always known would come, finding permanent homes for the little family. They had discussed keeping Ember, whose remarkable journey from feral survivor to contented house cat had captured their hearts, but the kittens would need homes of their own to thrive. Segment 5, Conclusion. The adoption event was held at the local shelter on a sunny Saturday in June, with a special area designated for the bench kittens and their many online followers who had come to meet the social media stars in person. Lily had created beautiful illustrated biographies for each kitten, detailing their personalities and quirks with the observational skill of someone who had watched them grow from their first breath. Eleanor was there, having taken the day off from park duties to support Lily and the kittens through this transition. "I never imagined this outcome when I first noticed that defensive little cat on my bench," she admitted, watching as prospective adopters admired the now vibrant, healthy kittens. "You've done something extraordinary here, Lily," The first to find a home was Ash, adopted by a young couple who had followed the kitten's story from the beginning and had specifically come for the silver tabby, whose confident personality had shone through in every update. They promised frequent photos and updates, assuring Lily they understood the responsibility they were undertaking for the next 15 to 20 years of Ash's life. Flicker went next, chosen by a retired teacher who had recently lost her elderly cat and had been hesitant to open her heart again until she had read about Ember's courage and Lily's dedication. If that little mother cat could trust again after whatever hardships she endured, then so can I, she told Lily, gently cradling the purring calico. We'll heal together. As the event neared its end, only Spark remained, the smallest kitten still overlooked despite her playful energy and sweet disposition. Lily tried to hide her disappointment and worry, having hoped all three would find homes today, sparing the sensitive Spark the stress of returning to the shelter environment without her siblings for comfort and confidence. Just as they were preparing to pack up, Elena approached with an unexpected announcement. "I've been thinking about this for weeks," she said. Her usually practical voice softened with emotion. "My apartment has been too quiet since my old cat passed last year. I'd like to adopt Spark, if that's okay with you, Lily. I feel like we're connected through this whole journey." The relief and joy on Lily's face was answer enough, but she managed to add through happy tears, "She'll love your apartment with all those big windows where she can watch birds. And you can bring her to the park sometimes to see where she was born." The symbolism wasn't lost on any of them, the smallest, most vulnerable kitten finding her forever home with the person who had first noticed their plight. With all three kittens matched with loving homes, Minji and Lily returned to their apartment, where Ember waited, now comfortable enough to have free range of the home, no longer needing the security of the crate that had initially been her only safe space. The mother cat had grown sleek and healthy, her once dull coat now gleaming like burnished copper in the afternoon sunlight that streamed through the windows. "It's just us now," Lily told Ember, scratching behind her ears in the spot that always elicited the loudest purrs. "You came into our lives because you needed help for your babies, but I think maybe we needed you too." Minji, watching from the doorway, nodded in silent agreement, understanding how profoundly this experience had changed their lives. The park bench where it all began had been commemorated with a small bronze plaque, funded by donations from followers of the kitten's story. "Ember's Bench," it read, "where a mother's courage, a child's patience, and a community's compassion came together to save 4 lives." Below was an engraved illustration based on Lily's original sketch of Ember guarding her hidden treasures. The bench had become something of a neighborhood landmark, with locals often leaving small donations for the shelter in the nearby collection box, or simply sitting there to reflect on the unlikely chain of events that had unfolded in that ordinary corner of the park. School groups sometimes visited as part of community awareness programs, learning about feral cat colonies, the importance of spay-neuter initiatives, and the difference that compassionate intervention could make. As for Ember, her transformation from frightened feral to beloved pet was complete the night she chose for the first time to sleep not at the foot of Lily's bed, but on the pillow beside her head, her rhythmic purring a lullaby that spoke of trust absolutely given, and a journey that had brought her from a cold park bench to the warmest place of all, a home where she was cherished not for the kittens she had protected with such determination, but simply for herself, exactly as she was.